Welcome to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that'll be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of running your business through an LLC. When venturing into the world of real estate investing, it's wise to run your business through a limited liability company, also known as an LLC. Let me elaborate on why this smart move can save you from potential headaches down the road. Imagine the scenario. You've diligently grown your real estate empire, acquiring properties left and right. Life is sweet until out of the blue, a disgruntled tenant or unforeseen lawsuit threatens to put a dent in your hard-earned success. But fear not, by operating your business as an LLC, you've built a solid wall of protection around your personal assets. The beauty of an LLC lies in its ability to separate your business affairs from your personal finances. In simple terms, it acts as a legal shield, shielding your personal savings, investments, and property from being targeted in the event of a legal dispute or creditors knocking on your door. It's like having your own impenetrable fortress guarding your unforeseen risks that can tarnish your financial well-being. Additionally, an LLC can offer tax benefits that can work to your advantage. While I won't dive into specifics, for I am certainly not a tax expert, but rest assured that an LLC provides the potential for tax advantages that can help optimize your bottom line and keep more profits in your pocket. So, my fellow badasses, promise me from now on you will protect yourself, shield your assets, and secure your financial future by using an LLC for your real estate business. Remember, an LLC can help you build your empire with peace of mind and a well-protected foundation. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Phil Tudor. Phil has an extensive background and upbringing in the construction industry, from the mentoring and guidance of his father, who ran a construction company for 30 plus years. In 2015, Phil founded his own construction, landscaping, and painting business, which he still operates today. Phil started by doing property preservation work for Fannie Mae REO properties, which included removing debris, general maintenance, small repairs, and winterizing properties. After acquiring 60 properties and becoming the #1 contractor in Southern New Jersey for Fannie Mae, he leveraged that into providing renovating services for investors and residential homeowners. In 2017, Phil was determined to become a real estate investor himself and joined a top-rated real estate education company, Fortune Builders. During that time, he founded Steadfast Homes and acquired and renovated 3 properties in his first year. His company went on to partner with Anchored Homes and help do 40-plus flips and 40-plus rentals within 2 years. Phil applied his personal construction knowledge, his Fortune Builders education, and leadership skills to oversee all construction projects within the Anchored Homes Steadfast Homes partnership. He oversaw and managed up to 10 projects at a time. These projects' renovation budgets range from $10,000 to $125,000. Phil is now branching out to offer support to many more, which we will be discussing on today's show. So let's get this party started. Welcome to the show, my brother from another mother, Phil Tudor. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I normally have my microphone on this side, so it's like totally throwing me off. I'm going to have to edit that opening there. But Phil, thank you so much for being on the show today. Like I said, you are my brother from another mother. We both did Fortune Builders, and I am forever grateful to that company, as I'm sure you are as well. But now we work with Homeschooled by Tarek El Moussa as coaches and have come full circle, you and I. So I am thrilled to hear what we are discussing today. But before we do, give us a little more background. I know you worked with your dad and everything, but how did this project that we're going to talk about today, how did that come about?
So like most of us that get into this at some point, actually all of us probably get to a point of like, we got into this probably for retirement or for making a nest egg, and maybe getting away from a W-2 job or whatever was taking away our primary source of time. We were trading time for dollars, as they would say. And, and for me, even though with all that stuff you read off on there, like, on the outside, it might sound great, but the person living it, I am like tied to these things. They are, in a way, become my ball and chain is what how I explain it best, because it was my W-2, and I'm okay with an active income. I just turned 40. But with that being said, the construction industry itself,
40. Come on, I just turned 50. Shut up. Keep going.
So, but like I said, I say that because I'm okay with working, right? My goals are to retire when I'm 55. I want to retire 10 years earlier than the average of 65 and travel the world with my best friend, my wife, and set my kids up for generational wealth, right? Well, my construction company, my retail construction company, is an active thing, and it takes so much of my energy and attention to manage that. It's a hands-on operation. It's very hard to systemize yourself out of that space in that industry. And once you get a taste of true entrepreneurship and investing, it's hard to live in that space. So I got to a point here recently where I was like, I'm done. I'm burning the ships. I'm leaving my construction company. I'm going full force in real estate investing. Because over the past, so the story, a little bit of backstory is that after the 80 plus transactions that we did in the partnership there with Anchored Homes, I was faced with an opportunity to rebrand and reface myself in the real estate investing space. And I decided to do rentals mixed with some flips in there, right? And I was doing that while still managing my construction company, which just over 2 years, with probably putting aside like 10 to 20% of my time on a weekly basis, I was able to build up a portfolio of 7 rentals and do a few flips. And, looking at my rental side of things, equity of over probably 250,000 already. And it's like, you do that and you're like, man, if I could just invest 100% of my time on a weekly basis into this space, how great would that be? Well, like most of us may say, is that I'll wait for the perfect timing, right? I'm waiting for the perfect situation where everything gels together and it's like this big old light goes off like, yeah, you should make the jump. And it just never comes. It really doesn't. From my experience, it never came. And I got to a point where at our latest event that we did for Tarek El Moussa, which was awesome in Scottsdale, Arizona, his story just inspired me. It really did. And he's a genuine guy. He's a self-made celebrity with different motives than most celebrities. He's a self-made celebrity because of his entrepreneurship and his drive, and that really inspired me. When I left, I said, I'm burning the ships. I'm done. I put my quitting date in of my own company, and I said, I'm done with this. Well, here's where it comes down to this point of why we're going to talk about the topic that we have today, is that speaking with my business partner, my current mentor, Coach JP, or JP Kilduff, as you all may know him, I was telling him, I says, look, I'm done. I'm leaving in construction. He says, I've been waiting for 7 years for you to say that. That's awesome. and I was like, I'm out. I'm doing real estate investing only. And he goes, well, hold on. Well, what are you going to do with all this experience around construction? I said, I don't know. I don't care. I'm done. And he said, but Phil, you've got so much to offer people out there, these other investors. And we just started going down this path of talking about a specific way that I could really service the needs of not only local investors to me geographically, but virtually across the board. And it made a lot of sense. Him and I had a lot of systems when we were full force. Like, even when you read it to me, my stats of 40 transactions or, 80 plus transactions in 2 years, it's insane.
Right.
Because I was even in my beginning stages of learning. I still didn't even know full force investing. We were just following the steps of our mentorship. And he's right. When I look back, I'm like, man, that is such an accomplishment. And I didn't walk away as a huge millionaire or anything like that, but I walked away with a lot of experience from lessons that I learned. And that's why I have a passion for sharing to others. And I still have an active need for income, so, and I'm okay with working actively. I just don't want to do it as a contractor, if that makes sense, and I want to be able to share what's been stored up in my mind over the years from the retail construction space to the investor construction space. And that's how that came about. It just really within a short period of time, I said, yeah, I think this makes sense. I think there's something here for the community and for the investors out there.
Well,
I
got to give a shout out to JP Kilduff, who is a mutual friend of ours, also from Fortune Builders, but still, and he used to coach for Homeschooled by Tarek. We love JP. I really love how he said, don't give up that whole construction knowledge that you have. Mm-hmm. And I got to give you a personal shout out, because when it comes to coaching students on how to do things, I'm great at this, I'm great at that. I'm not great at knowing all the construction numbers. I'm not great at the inefficiencies. You taught me to post a picture of the layout for the cabinets, for example. Put it on the wall as everybody else is doing their stuff around it, so they see where things are going instead of it being a guess. And so you have all these tips and amazing tricks to really hone in on some of these inefficiencies. And I have a lot of respect for you. You are my go-to guy when it comes to these type of things. I even told my husband, I'm sure you've heard the story before, but I told my husband I always wanted to sleep at the GC. And I was thinking he'd say, well, which one? And no, he got his GC license, but still, it's a really tough job. And so you have come up with a program that is going to help so many people. So first of all, what's the need? Where did the need come from where you said, this is where I want to go? What do people struggle with when it comes to flipping properties?
I mean, the construction phase of it, in the community that we coach in for Tarek, it's, I quickly got coined the term of construction Phil, or something to that effect. If it was anything construction, it was like, all right, we'll just send him over to Phil and let him coach on that, and it's like,
as do I.
And I say, if anybody wants to talk short terms, go to Jen, that's your girl over there. So, and I think that makes a lot of sense in the coaching space. So, the need is just that there's so much that goes into that. And when these new investors come into the space, that's the biggest area for failure, right? If you really get down to it and you look at how the lenders position themselves with investors and how the deal goes in the life cycle of it, the most risk is in that construction phase when it's on your books, and that's the need. The need is for protecting yourself, right? So many times we get paralysis.
Let's just say, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's just make an example of exactly what you said. So one major issue that could happen could be something with foundation, where it could set you back and totally put you in the red. One could be, the AC unit, you're doing like a quick little lipstick job, but all of a sudden you got to replace an entire AC unit. So all of this is so important, and you are 1,000% correct that not knowing the construction side of the business can totally screw you on the profit side of the business. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was such a great point. I just want to reiterate to the listeners how important something like this is needed. So keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you even a quick story right now. I'm actively in a deal under contract, and I'm negotiating very, very touchy terms, very, very specific terms to protect myself with an underground oil tank, and that, most people won't enter into a deal with that because of the risk, but the risk is because of the unknown and the lack of the experience. But even furthermore, it's just, there's a lot more that goes into that than just experience. I mean, of construction, it's experience as an investor. So I help bring all that to the table. And because of my experience of living through over 100 deals, I know enough about the acquisition side of things and the disposition side of things that I marry all of that together in my mind when I'm looking at these deals. But the main thing that we're all looking at is when we're at distressed properties is when we're assessing our entrance into that or a purchase price is what's it going to take to fix it? So there is a huge 80-90% of what I do is guiding by my experience of looking at it through a contractor's eyes, But then there's this other tricky aspect, that like I see the value supersedes just what we would call the redevelopment phase. It actually influences the acquisitions phase. For instance, in our organization, the way we had our system set up when we did those 80 deals was that acquisitions was running without me even talking to them. They were finding the leads. And then as they would get them under contract, verbal acceptance, I would get an email triggered immediately that would say, here's our preliminary numbers, get to the property within 24 hours and tell us if we're nuts or if it's a go, And that's the way it was, I was that safety valve that right away I was like, boom, on the property, take 100 pictures, a video walkthrough, and assessing and confirming or denying what acquisitions was bringing to me. So, there's just a lot to it, but the biggest problem, like what you're saying, if I try to sum it up, is just the dealing with contractors, right? Is the biggest thing. And what I see is a lot of students that come across my plate is I can tell you step by step how to do it. I have a 6-step contractor onboarding system. We have the 6 critical documents. I have it all there for you. I can lay it all out for you. Most people are afraid to take action in that space. And I'm coming to a point of realizing that if people want the convenience factor, then why don't I just offer it to them? Why don't I help them? And we walk hand in hand together as a team collaboration in this space. And I think that's going to help a lot of new investors or even savvy investors that quite frankly, they just want to be the entrepreneur and want me to be the manager. Right. They don't care about even learning it in that space. But specifically for new investors, I think it's going to help them a lot with that paralysis by analysis or that anxiety going into the deal, because it is treacherous. It's serious stuff. You have deposits online, on the line here, and your reputation too a lot.
All right. So what did you come up with to solve this issue? I have been chomping at the bit, ready to hear this announcement. So you have created something that you are going to release to the world that will help people in this situation. So reveal it.
Yeah.
What do we got?
So it's called virtual project management is what I came up with. So VPM for short, it's under my heading company of Steadfast Consulting, under my brand. But virtual project management is where I am doing, a fair amount of the services that you would do as what we call the boots on the ground normally as an investor, right? You hire a contractor, you write up the contracts with them, you build a scope of work, you walk the property with them. Well, every aspect that you can imagine that doesn't require me physically there is what I'm providing in the redevelopment side of things, And the way that I like to look at it, and this is coming out soon, like I'm seriously building this out. It's already out. I already have active clients, but I'm going to make this a professional product for this community here of investors. Is that there's going to be a lot. Like I have a back end lady in the Philippines working on it right now. Within 2 weeks, it's going to be rolled out with forms and automation and everything that you fill out as an investor. But it's a team collaboration is the way that we look at it, and it's a big oversight and guidance, but my primary goal is to relieve the burden from the investor. And the way that I like to look at it here early on is that you're hiring me in advance, not when you need me. And the reason being is because, like we talked about earlier, it's not just about managing the construction, it's making sure that you're getting into a good deal, because I had that contractor eye, right? How many times as investors we're looking at these deals and we're going, let me get my contractor to verify it before I'm submitting an offer or accepting what they came back at, so now what I'm looking at is get me involved early, right? Remember how I told you with our system, with the acquisitions team, they would trigger me, hey, we got this deal, Phil, what do you think? And that's where I'm trying to position myself, is right into that phase right there, right into that due diligence period, right? To the point of literally, I'm going to coach you to say, hey, if you don't have a 10 to 14 day inspection period, don't even take the deal, type of thing. Or if you do, let's walk this very, very carefully. There are tricks that you can do. But that's where I get involved right there, right? And then, from there, if I green light it for you or whatnot, then you move forward. And then when closing day, we're already prepared. Like that whole time period in there is a serious amount of work in the beginning to help you hit the ground running day after closing.
Huge. So, time is money. And if you don't have your contractors ready to go on closing day, that's costing you money. There are so many investors out there that will buy a property and think, oh, it starts once I close on it. And now let me go think about doing all this stuff. So I'm so glad you brought that up, which is huge. So huge question here. Mm-hmm. how do you do this virtually? Because when I'm walking properties, there's a smell that I can smell. I'm like, there's probably some organic growth, as we call mold in this industry, or I can feel the squishiness of the floor. So how are you doing this virtually?
So that's a very good question. So it's a done by us product, not a done for you. Okay. Because I can't do everything for you. So it's a done by us team collaboration. Right. And I'm coming beside you, and it's optional where it's like, hey, I'm going to give you even 4 coaching sessions 101 that outside of your project, undistracted, undivided attention, we're going to talk about systems and things like this, what you're talking about, right? How do we set yourself up to be in a good spot, and also putting me in a good spot as your virtual project manager? You're not just bringing me bad deal after bad deal that I keep turning down, right? So there's this, my eagerness and my goal is for you to learn some of those preliminary tricks to feed me what I need. I need the information. So I love Google Drive. I set up the folder for the client. I share them the link, and I say, upload your photos, right? I want 100 photos from every corner in the room, right? And all around the property in a 360 circle on the front yard. And I want a video walkthrough doing exactly what you just said. Tell me what your senses are picking up, because pictures are only going to tell me one sense. What I'm seeing with my eyes.
Got it.
I need to know what you're hearing when you're walking on the floor. I need to know what you're smelling when you go in the room, things like that. That's literally what I did even for myself. This is the beauty of this thing, is that when I sat here and I thought about this, is that I'm like, I've already done all this. And I didn't realize that I had done this. I had created my own personal accountability system to do this. Because here's what I would do, is that, because imagine I'm managing 10 plus flips. I'm managing 16 employees in my new construction company back when we did this. And I'm still getting new deals coming into my inbox from my team to go evaluate. So my time is super, super limited. So when I get out to the property, what I came up with is I'm going to take 100 pictures of the property. I'm going to walk through and narrate to myself. I feel squishiness in this floor. I feel this over here. I smell this here. And I would upload it. As I'm driving home, I'm uploading it into Google Drive. I come back to the comfort of my office and I sit in front of my computers and I digest that information. I review it. And then that's when I come up with my assessment, with the other systems that we know, which is, pricing sheets and different things like that. So it's already there. It's just that all I need is somebody to go do that, right? We just need the investor to go do those steps. That's it. All I'm doing is guiding them on the front end, boots on the ground steps, and that's it, and hand it off to me. And because I'm so good with just seeing it on the pictures and hearing the videos, that I can just do a series of questions or through those pictures there, get the information that I need. Because we're not aiming for perfection in this game. That's the one thing that I learned. You live and you die by your contingencies and your construction budgets.
Oof,
okay?
Well said.
It's just, 20 deals later, that's what I came to, because I kept beating my head against the table or the wall going, I can't get these things 100% accurate. Why can't I figure out these construction budgets? I was never going to figure them out. So the reality is that if I was smart with my 10 to 20% of contingency that I was leaving, that rainy day budget stuff, that my goal was just to get to 80, 90% accuracy on the front end.
So listeners, he's talking about the contingency that we add to our rehab budget. If you're doing a quick flip lipstick job, you're going to add about 10% of the total rehab budget for those what ifs. If you're doing a full gut job, you want to add 20% to that rehab budget.
Opposite.
You want 20% for the.
Let me explain.
Oh,
yes. 20% on your cosmetic flips, because you have less unknown. You have more unknowns behind the wall. Okay. When you're doing a full gut rehab, you're already touching the expensive mechanicals and things like that. So it's the opposite. You're going to be in a lesser spectrum when you have a higher budget and touching all of those expensive components of the house.
Interesting. I like how you're thinking, but what if I'm flipping a townhome that is built in 2006? Am I really doing 20%?
As a cosmetic, you're saying?
Yes.
Or
like I'm doing floors,
you have to be within
walls.
good reason. You have to be within good reason always.
Okay.
As the acquisitions, this is where it's a done by us, because you're going to know is your seller willing to allow that much room in there for you on your offer price or not. And these are judgment calls you need to make. Look, I'm not always like exactly at 10% or 20%. You know what I mean? I'm gauging in here because I might identify some things that are obvious to me. Like if I'm walking a house and I feel some sloping over here, I'm not just going to say, I'll throw that in my contingency. I'm actually going to make a custom line item that says $5,000 for foundation repairs. So then my contingency comes down. So I look at it in reason. I go, all right, I'm covering a lot of these major components or concerns right here already. I think I can get away with adding this much of my contingency.
Okay. So I love all this so far. I know I coach students all the time and they want to drag a contractor to every walkthrough that they do. And I was like, stop doing that. First of all, they're going to hate you because, that's time for them, which is money. And you are asking them to do it out of the kindness of their heart most of the time. Some people will start paying them $150, $200 to go walk properties with them. But this is more, you are teaching them, you're having a couple coaching calls. You are going to be this person for them. But on the flip side, you are not acting as a GC. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So what are you acting as?
A project manager.
I'm
managing your contractors. Yep. So there's two different models that we find ourselves in with this scenario when I pre-think it out before I rolled it out, which is either I'm managing a general contractor or I'm managing a series of subs. Okay.
Right.
If I'm managing a series of subs, it's a lot more work. So my fee goes up, obviously, because now you're replacing, you're making me the GC. And, when I really gave thought to this, Jen, I'm glad this conversation is going this way because I like to think about and talk about the elephant in the room before it even comes up, which is, okay, what's the cost of the service, right? And if I'm trying to come from a position of like, I want to relieve the burden, well, if I'm adding this huge bill to you, I'm burdening you more.
Correct.
So when I sat here and I thought, I said, what's the compensation plan to make this work for us? Because I'm coming as a team member, is that if you're following the rules as an investor to put a 10 to 20% contingency on your project, then if I stay within that buffer, my goal is to shorten your project life than you normally experience and find cost savings for you and good negotiations with your contractors, because I'll be doing your contracts for you, is that I will create the saving to make my compensation. That's the goal.
Yeah. Phil, that is awesome. I love all of that. But back to my question about the whole GC thing. If you are, so you're in Southern New Jersey, say you have a client that lives in Houston, Texas, and it's going to be a full gut job and they're asking you to be the project manager. Does that person still need to hire in Houston, Texas? Do they still need to hire a GC for the project?
I would recommend it. Yes. The GCs are always going to be the best path, right? So that's what I have to work with you on is initially when I onboard you as my client, not every client's going to be approved to work for me.
Got it.
If you don't have your contractors kind of lined up, your onboarding system, there's another product I'll be working on down the road, but it's not here or now, but I'll teach you onboarding because you have to be able to have a good team on the bench for me to work. It just doesn't work otherwise. Because I also, what I don't want to be ascribing to or assigning to in this position is, how can I put it? Higher percentages of failure,
Okay.
So I'm going to have contingencies myself on who I work with as an investor. And you're going to come in and you're going to get interviewed and we're going to have a one-on-one conversation. I'm going to see if you're in a good spot for me to be able to be successful for you. Because I'm not interested in getting put in a bad spot and then getting the finger pointed at me.
Right.
So, but let me explain to you a little bit more about the services I offer, because I think this will help you with where your mind's at of like, how does this work if he doesn't even know these people or meet these people yet? So I will be pre-screening and vetting your deals and projects, right, that we talked about. You pre-hire me, you say, yep, Phil, I like your compensation. I'm pre-agreeing to that. If I get a deal, I'm going to bring it to you and pro bono or whatever you want to call it before you even hire me, even pay me yet. I'm going to just look at it in 15, 20 minutes. I can tell you if it's a good deal or not. And then once you get your redevelopment funds, that's when the payments start kicking in for me, right? Well, once you get me my first deposit payment, I'm going to go into full action, okay, which is guidance for the due diligence and inspection period, but then assistance with your contractor onboarding. So, for instance, my first client, I got thrown into whatever, I don't want to use bad words, but like just a bad spot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to trash the investor, but like she was in the middle of a project. She's jammed up. She's like, yes, I need your help, Bill. I'm GCing this for my first time and I don't know what I'm doing. So now I come mid-project. I have to learn all these people that are at play. I have to build rapport with them extremely quickly, right? Get respect out of them. And then even in the midst of it, I'm advising my client. I'm like, look, we're not going to continue with this person. Who do you have as a backup? Before we fire them, I need a backup, right? So that stuff innately is going to come out in our relationship here because I'm interested in you winning. You know what I mean? I'm vested with you, and it's you got to get across the finish line because the way my payment schedule is set up is thirds. third in advance, third upon start a project, and third upon finish. I got to get you to the finish line. I can't drag this thing out for 12 months either. I'm not interested in that, but I also want to get more business from you too. So it's a team collaboration. That's why the done by us model works very beautifully in this. But specifically back to your question, it's about me pre-screening who they already have on their bench. So introducing me, you would say me and you do this, right, Jen? And I'm like, okay, Jen, who do you have on your bench as contractors? It sounds like you and I are a good fit based upon, where you're at with your business. You're like, I got this GC or I got these subs if I want to do it that way. Okay, great. What's your experience to them? Blah, blah. Great. Give me a soft introduction to them. Let me talk with them. And I'm going to go through and respectfully do my own type of pre-screening and questioning. And I can know pretty quickly if people know what they're doing. I'll give you another example. I love examples and stories. Is this specific project, my very first client with this, she gives me a guy, he's a drywall guy. So I'm getting them to even send me pictures too, because I'm trying to manage a project in any little way I can. Even without even sending the investor there, I'm saying, hey, send me some pictures. I love to see updates. That's great. He's sending me drywall pictures. And he goes, oh, by the way, I can do your tile work too. I said, oh, really? Okay, you can do my tile work. Send me your pictures, And I didn't say it sarcastically down on the phone. I said, yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. Let's just focus on the drywall right now. Look, I know, and probably, that's why you're laughing in this game. Drywall guys don't do your tile. There's no jack of all trades that's going to be good for you in this game. Now, if you're doing slumlord ghetto projects, okay, run with it. But your tile's still going to fall off the wall, right? But stay in your lane is what I've heard and learned in this game, So he's sending me pictures, and I just know by the pictures of his prep work for tile that he's not the right guy for my client. So I go behind the scenes and I inform her, do not hire this guy for your tile, please. You can make your own decisions, but I'm letting you know this is my advice.
Well, right? I love it. I don't mean to cut you off because I love my tile guy too. And I laugh at this because he is so picky about how he aligns things. Like when I turn my shower on, it is a perfect line above and below because that's where he starts. And instead of starting at the wall and going over. So I agree 1,000% on that. And drywall people, I am still cleaning up drywall at my own personal home that was completed 7 or 8 months ago. So going back to something that you said earlier, which I was like, yes, it's the conversation with the contractor because you speak contractor. And so I'm assuming you are creating kind of a scope of work?
Absolutely. Yep, okay. That's included as well.
So the scope of work, I just interviewed 2 of our students at Homeschooled, Carolyn and Nicholas Stevens, and they had a contractor give them a scope of work that said paint the exterior of the house. So the guy paints the exterior of the house. He only paints the front of the house. And he said, no, I'm only painting the front of the house. So these are things, and I'm bringing this up because, again, stories, because we could probably go back and forth with stories. It is so important that to have someone like you on a project that speaks contractor, that no, man, this is the complete exterior of the house is what we mean. So little things like that can nip people, and then they have to raise the budget to finish the rest of the house. So it's silly,
Absolutely.
silly. So
Absolutely.
Tell me the perfect avatar for you, meaning who is your perfect client in this type of situation?
All right. It's a good question. Before we go on with that too, I just want to make one point too. It's like these skill sets that I bring to the table, and this is not about me bragging or anything. It's just that I recognize them in the moments when I exercise them, is even my communication skills. We're going to get to my biggest influencing book is probably later, but in the moment dealing with stuff, I literally had a drywall guy recently where he didn't finish the tape seams between the wall and the ceiling. And I asked the client, because I'm mid-project, she doesn't give me a scope of work, and this is going to lend to my perfect avatar 2 point. I'm like, are you putting crown molding up because he didn't tape the ceiling to the wall? And she's like, no, I'm not. So I call him out on it. Well, he wants to sing a song and dance already now because he's been paid in full. Well, it was literally to the point, Jen, where this client was going to be, in a bad position, have to pay this extra, like you're saying, to get this finished now. And because there's different ways of holding accountable, not only by wordage, but the way you pay and your contracts, right? So I literally called him out. I says, are you a man of integrity or are you not? And through this conversation. And I left it at that. And I was ready that if I didn't hear from him within about 4 hours, I was going to tell my client, do not ever use that guy again. Well, he came back and he says, okay, Phil, I'll take care of it. I'll be there within 2 weeks. So there's these little things that even when you're in tight situations, because of my experience, I haven't just dealt with investment projects. I've dealt with retail customers. They're the hardest, of detail. So these communication skills is what I bring to the table as well, right? Perfect avatar now. The perfect avatar for me is going to be two main things is what I'm seeing initially here, is that somebody that is coachable and will complete work assignments from me, and also tech savvy. Okay, because we're going to use technology to our advantage in a big, big way. A lot of times on the fly, I might be like, put me on a video call on a walkthrough for a draw, And I need people that can be quick. You know what I mean? We're talking about time is money. I can't be bogged down with hours upon hours of dealing with conversations. So that's why I say this coachable person too that can, execute assignments that I give them. The reason being is because I'm using high level stuff like Gantt charts that they're not familiar with. I'm using spreadsheets for deliverables. And I'm like, I want to be touching gloves once a week on this project. This is how I ran 10 plus projects at a time. Okay, while managing a 16 employee company, is through super high level efficiencies. So my perfect avatar cannot be a stumbling block to that process or these processes being implemented within their companies. So I think tech savvy and coachable is very important for me.
So what if it is someone who doesn't have contacts with contractors yet? What if it's a newer investor? They are techie, they are, coachable, they want to be the best they can, but they have not yet made those connections.
So that's where this started to branch out.
Okay.
And I don't want to get too far off the trail here with this, but this is going to be, I'm getting excited because this is going to be turning into multiple layers of products that I can offer because there's a 6-step onboarding system that I created. So if you're in that position, you might not qualify for me to be your project manager just yet, but I might say, hey, look, why don't you invest in this space over here with me for a little bit and let's focus on this system for your company and get that up and running, and then we can get you into deals, So that's where, like, for me, the way I look at it is virtual project management is just one aspect underneath this umbrella of the construction and redevelopment stuff. So for instance, I was always doing the contractor onboarding. The hiring sign was always on. I was always talking to contractors, interviewing them. I'll give you another little story. This is all happening. My first client is getting super, super blessed by my experience. And I'm seeing it happen and I'm getting excited for it because I don't even know this stuff in advance. Like when I try to think out this product, when I'm in the moment, I'm just activating these things that I've learned in the past, which is there's a book out there, a great book called Top Grading. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Top Grading was great. It was a Fortune Builders book that was recommended by JJ Sajan, I think it was.
JD Sajan.
JD, yeah, sorry. JJ is another person, right? They're similar. And they're both in the same space. Really, it's annoying. So it talks about, like, if you're an A+ plumber for me, for instance, for example, right? If I ask you for a referral for an HVAC company, you're going to give me an A+ referral because you don't mingle with C- players.
Right.
So when I got into this project with her, I latched onto her electrician. He was high level in his communications. He was thorough. He was talking very good, lingo with me. And I said, hey, man, do you have any recommendations for other contractors in this space for me? Because, she could use some help. Some of these other players aren't that good in her project. And boom, he's firing off people to me. So I'm already now building out her list for her to help her with that.
I love that.
So,
that is awesome, Phil. Gosh, I'm so lucky to call you my brother from another mother because you are rocking this. So I have a big question here. When I'm working with newer real estate investors, even real estate investors, when I'm purchasing a property, I have to sometimes be super tight with my budget. What would justify me hiring someone like you for more funds on top of the project? And I already know the answer, but I want to hear you.
It's already raised in the capital. It's already in the contingency. I'm not a cost to you.
Well, that's my point. And that's the point I'm getting at is you are saving so much time and stress. It is a convenience because, I know I probably shouldn't be bragging about this, but I call you and say, I have a question on this. Can you help me with this? So I know you are the person to go to for these answers, but you are, someone may say it's going to take a year to flip a project. And then you're fees are kind of baked into that contingency and all that stuff. But hiring someone like you could turn that down to like an 8-month project.
Absolutely.
That's my point, is what I'm getting at. Even though people look at hiring you as an expense, but you are going to save them money with a concept like that. That was my point I was getting at.
And that's something that I can't say, I can give you this. I can just say that's an ancillary value that's on the table.
Yes.
And that's why I don't go around touting it, because it's a done for by us. I can get into, even if you are my perfect avatar, probably can get into, see myself getting into positions in the future where I might have to fire you because you're in my way. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean?
Yes. I do know that.
If you're going to be slowing me up to get to the final payment too, like I'm not interested in continuing here, So there's going to be parameters, very tight parameters on us, because it is absolutely true. I want you to want to rehire me in the future if you choose to, and I want you to recommend me to other people. So time is money. I know this in the game. We have holding costs daily. So like literally, I'll read you a text message from my client today. I'm starting to put the pressure on her because she's becoming a hindrance to the project moving faster because she's not completing assignments for me. So I said, we'll be stepping our game up next week and moving into a scheduling Gantt chart system. This will help get your project done as fast as possible and provide a great visual aid with overview of your project. Okay. So in order to do that, we have to know the moving parts and the chess pieces, if we may say that way, of who's at play and when they're coming into the project, like that. So if I'm in a position right now, like she's got me in, where it's like, I don't even know who the painter is that hired yet. How can I get him on the phone and pre-scheduled for 2 weeks out from now? That's how you create efficiencies in schedulings and things like that. For instance, another example of how I can create something I can't just quantify to you on the front end as an investor, but a time saver, is when you're ordering your inspections, you don't order them when you're ready. You order them in advance by having high level of communication with your contractors.
And
that can save you 2 weeks.
And you order your draws in advance because it takes time for them to schedule and then show up. So
these are all things that I learned from my own experience, because, hey, when we were doing it, I had my own self-accountability, and through my partnerships of what were my KPIs, my key performance indicators. If my project was overdue, we would look at that post-construction and say, what caused these delays? What caused the extra time? And we would identify these things. And that's how we then started creating systems by asking the questions of like, well, how do we avoid that in the future? Right? What went well, what could go better? It was our post-analysis, basically framework to our meetings. And that's where we started discovering we're ordering inspections, when we need them, and we're waiting a week for the inspectors to come out. Well, let's order them in advance and just reschedule them if we're not ready.
Phil, this is so great. And this is so important to the success of many people during projects. And it is so necessary. Anything else you want to add to this to talk about this program?
No, I think that, I would just add this. There's a lot of layers to this. I can't explain it all right now here. What it is that it's trusting in your investment. If you can look at my record here and you can say, hey, I think there's something here. You just get into the funnel with me, get into the queue, and I talk with you, and you will know very quickly if we're a good fit for each other or not, and if it makes sense for your business, because I can't just put on one graphic or something for you to tell you what I'm bringing to the table. Jen, you know me more than the average person listening on this podcast. There's even things that you don't know about me that I could bring to the table for even your company per se. It's just, there's this point where when I tell students, if you trusted Tarek and his community, for instance, and you invested in him, you don't need to know steps, 7 through 25. You just need to know the first few steps and trust that you made a good investment. Okay. Exactly. And that's just all I can say,
So well said. And I trust you 1,000%. And I think this is such a necessary concept. I don't even know what to even call this. What is this? This is a what?
Virtual project management, but it is so unique. You're right.
It is so unique.
My creator, she's like, who's your competition? I'm like, nobody. I don't know if anybody that's done this. I know a company that we evaluated before out of northern New Jersey that would do it locally, and they would bring in their own contractors table. But to do it virtually, this is where I scratched my head for a second and questioned JP. I'm like, is this possible? And and here's why I realized it was, and I'm willing to go forward with this and put this together and discovered it is possible, is because I literally got to the same point within our own local business here in Southern New Jersey by bringing my father in to be my boots on the ground. Okay. And I would tell him as a high level manager of that department to say, all I need you to do is go to the property, take these pictures in this video and upload it when they're asking for their draw. And then we would just consult real quick, like, well, what is your opinion of what you saw? And we would make good judgment based upon that. It's never perfect. It's never black and white. Sometimes it's a $3,000 draw that they do. Sometimes I give them $2,500 and I hold back $500. It's an art. It's not a black and white process here, and I've even said, I haven't had this yet with any of my clients, but look, if you don't have the know-how or the ability to even do the boots on the ground, give me a college student that wants to be an intern for, $20 an hour and I will get it done for you. I just need somebody that's competent enough with a phone and taking pictures, really.
This is so awesome, Phil. And I appreciate you coming on here and sharing this. And I know there's such a need for it. And putting it together is a huge task. You have a lot of work ahead of you to put this together. But if anyone can do it, I know you can. And I am sure you are going to shine. So thank you for sharing that. I like to take the second half of the podcast and I use the acronym BADASS because not only are you a badass, Phil, this idea is a badass idea. So concept, organization, whatever we're going to call it. So the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It really is so paramount to a lot of things I do. Communication is key in the construction industry. And you're dealing with personalities and I can go on and on, but there are many different principles and techniques that were taught to me in that book that I use to this day. So huge influencing book for me. Timeless
book. So very, very well said. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, I'm glad you're bringing this one up. So the best piece of advice I got when I got into the real estate space, it was always recommended to have a real estate attorney review all your documents.
Always.
Stuff. Well, because I had my construction company retail, I asked him to look at those contracts for me too. And we just got talking and it was in my house, my dining room table, and he's like, I'm like, what's the number one piece of advice you would give me? And he said, Phil, almost every single litigation I'm in court for contractors is over change orders, right? And what he started to explain to me was like, if you're in a position of having to enforce a contract, you've already missed the point. And the point was, and he never even said it, but it resonated with me, and I continued to ponder on it over the days and months and probably year that he left my presence there, was that the contracts are not like, for instance, how can I explain this? Like, if I put a contract in front of you as my contractor and I say, hey, sign this, and I don't read it with you and you don't read it, and then we go forward with the project and we use that example you gave me with the guy peeing just in front of the house. Well, if now I go like this and I come out to the project and start waving around my contract, what good does that do?
Right.
Now he's gonna be like, okay, screw you, I'll see you in court, right? And it's like, okay, now I gotta go waste some time away from my project, I gotta hire this attorney, then I gotta win, and if I win, I gotta lien his house that he doesn't own. He'll probably never own a house because of who he is, right? So I've already missed the point, is what my attorney told me. It was the best advice. So what I had learned was that my hiring process, my onboarding process, includes me talking about these contracts early on, because I want to see their body language and how they're reacting to how I choose to conduct business in advance. That is my indicators. And that was like the best advice I could ever get, because it even resonated in other areas of my life of just know who you're getting in business with first. Don't find out later on. Find out early on.
Great advice. I love that. Wow. Very, very good. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives Phil to be successsul?
My family. It really does.
You have what, 18, 19 children? How many kids do you have?
We got 5 total, So we're a blended family. My wife had 3, I had 1, and then we had 1 together. And we're a little bit of a Brady bunch, but it's great. But I love every single one of them, and it is my drive for me personally, like I said earlier, is to travel the world with my best friend, my wife, because I want to see these beautiful things like the pyramids, and I don't want to see them when I'm 75 and need assistance getting up the pyramids. I want to do it in my youth. So,
well, don't wait till you're 50, because I don't think I could get up a pyramid right now, but keep going.
So that drives me. But then I also I love it. Like when I bring my kids around these projects now, and they see this side of being an entrepreneur, because You know it, I know it, and any entrepreneur on listening on this podcast is that once you get a taste of it, it's so hard and almost impossible to go back to a W-2 job. So when you witness somebody else stepping into a W-2 on a path to go to a W-2 job, you're like, no, don't do it. It's cool for my family because if they choose to do it or not, it's up to them. But I can create generational wealth for them to relieve the burden in the process. And that's fun.
So well said. Yes. I interviewed someone recently that had to go back to work because of the 2008 crash. And I was sweating just thinking about it. So I agree.
I'll go down fighting. It ain't happening.
I think I had Uber before I started working for somebody else. Yes. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
So just providing tremendous value to other investors, by sharing with them all that I've experienced and learned over these 100 deals that I've managed. I came into this coaching space because JP talked me into it. I didn't think I was fit for it. He convinced me after a few conversations, and I'm so glad he did because it really does give me that aspiration. It's such a joy. It doesn't feel like a job. It really doesn't.
And I agree 1,000%. And I was kind of coerced to becoming a coach as well by our mutual friend, Rob McIntosh. And I'm forever, because he saw something in me I didn't have the confidence to see in myself. So I agree with that 1,000%. But I'm going to add a little bit more on top of what JP said about you. I think in this situation of what you've created here for the listeners, for people who need that project management, even though it's going to be virtual, what you are providing is also, you speak contractor and you're so good at it, but you speak investor as well. That's the other side of it, is you are actively investing yourself in your own projects. So that's the eye that you have on this that most people don't see. So again, Phil, I keep going back to it, but it is going to be so great. And I'm super, super proud of you. All right. Thanks. Enough gushing over your awesomeness. Yeah. Let's, the first S in badass is for systems. I know you are a systems guy. So what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
There's so many of them, but just at a high level is, like project management deliverable spreadsheets. There's a lot of spreadsheets that we had developed within our organization to help us track these things at a high level. If I'm doing multiple projects, right? And, most of my investors are probably in my avatar going to be in that type of space. They have a need, they have the wit that is requiring them. They're busting at the seams. They need help with that management. So these spreadsheets that we've created, and one of them is project management deliverables. It's a high level once a week project sheet that we go through and we talk about each project. The 6 critical document system is something that was taught to us, and that is a crucial system that I will never waver from, and I will always implement that, which is basically just a big heading word for or phrase for your contracts that you're putting in place for anybody that makes over $600 a year from you. The 6-step contractor onboarding system is, like I said, is an ancillary thing that is coming up. It's something that I created within the coaching realm over the few years I've been doing this. It kept coming up consistently, so I just wrote down the steps one day in my mind, and I just came up with this whole system for you from start to finish that I could, just hand it to you and you can run with it, or you can hire me and I can do it with you, done by us. Gantt charts, that's something that I'm getting back into. So these are tracking scheduling systems. That's another system that I love to look at, especially if we're doing higher end real estate investor stuff. Like you're talking over $1 million resale, Gantt charts are par for the course in that
huge.
And then the one-on-one coaching sessions, I consider that a system, because it's outside of the noise that you're dealing with on a daily basis. It's really honing in on whatever you might need as an investor. Is it mindset stuff you're dealing with, or is it, acquisitions things or whatever? So there's one-on-one coaching sessions. But the final system, and I consider this a system, is the team member collaboration, right? How that works, because with JP and I, that's what we did. We built this organization. So we had to sit down and see who are the team members and what lanes are they in and what are the responsibilities in those lanes. So we created entire task systems on Teamwork, was the website, that initiated when certain phases would come online. Boom, all these things would pop up in your inbox, say these are tasks, and they would be time sensitive, some of them, if that one wouldn't open up until the other one was done before it. So that team collaboration is a system alone in itself, that I know where my responsibilities start and where my responsibilities end and where yours start,
And I also have to say, I've only worked with one, not my husband. Prior to my husband getting his GC license, I worked with one. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Jake Harris, and he had all these systems in place as well. And it just totally shifted how we ran our business. And for you to provide this for people, because I mean, you hire a GC here, they're like spreadsheet, what? And just like how you think and the higher level is going to work so much better on the investor side. And that's where your gift lies. And again, this is going to be so great. By the way, I think you need to name this company Done For by Us. You have said it multiple times. I ended up just writing it down. I'm like, I love it.
I'll make that my slogan, at least for you. Steadfast Consulting, Done For by Us.
That is so good. And
that got learned. I learned that recently. I didn't know that in the space of selling services, there's what Done For by you, Done For by me, and Done For by Us, I guess, if I'm right. Because as I was explaining it to my funnel creator, I'm like, I don't know what you call it. You know what I mean? But that made a lot of sense when she asked me. I said, no, it's not a Done For by me. I can't do everything. It's got to be a Done For by Us. This is a team play here. You know?
That is your slogan, and I love it. Great job. All right, to wrap this up, the final S in badass is success. And what does success mean to Phil Tudor?
So you give us these questions in advance, and I had to sit here and think about this because that is such a deep question. Especially when you've gone through 100 deals, you've gone through business mistakes and failures, the business successes, or whatever we want to determine it. And a lot of times, our minds can go to like monetary right away. Right. And for me, when I sat back and I looked at it, I came up with taking action with a spirit of determination. Because success to me is not necessarily that I'm making a ton of money or something like that. Success to me is that I'm applying myself and not giving up. And that is very endeared to my heart because this is not easy, this game, and I tell investors early on, I said, look, I can't guarantee you'll make money in this game, but if you do a deal, I guarantee you will be challenged. Guaranteed. That's the only thing I can guarantee in this game, success for me is taking action with a spirit of determination.
Well, Phil, this has been so great. I always learn so much from you, and I look forward to watching your success in your Done For by Us program with Steadfast Consulting. What is it going to be called? Steadfast Consulting?
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be great, and there's such a huge need for it, and the sky is the limit for you. I'm so super proud of you. So thank you for coming on and sharing this with the listeners.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery, and don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of REIN by registering on REINmastermind.com.